Great transition.
I love that song.
I really love that song. I was dancing like you have no idea. I was just bobbing my head. Oh, so good. Anyway,
Here we go. Here we go.
here we go. Hey everybody. This is Adam, my good friend Brent next to me. I was pointing this way. You're this way, actually. I think something like that. I don't know.
Yep.
This is what we call Containers from the Couch. And if you joined us yesterday, we were we dove into the AWS Copilot CLI for ECS. And Brent, you so eloquently put it as unboxing. It was like an unboxing video. We had never used it actually, and so it was our first time. I think it was a really awesome experience. We had some members from the team in the chat. They were helping us out as we were going along. But the truth is, we didn't really need a whole lot of help. And I think that's the whole point of this tool was we could just focus on our application, run a couple commands, and boom, it's deployed.
Yeah. I think that's, it was a great experience. The developer experience is obviously first and foremost on that team's mind, and that really shows. So, I think that what we're going to do today is we're going to continue the exploration and get into some of the more advanced features. And again, it's a bit of an unboxing because we haven't done this before. So we're going to try and figure it out, and we might run into some, bumps along the way, but no big deal. Worst case, we file some issues on GitHub, or we invite you to do that because this is a community project. So speaking of, let me pop up the URL for you. You can find Copilot at GitHub, Copilot-CLI. So definitely check that out, file issues. There's a great wiki. I know they're also working on some advanced, enhanced documentation and stuff like that.
It's pretty. Yeah, it's looking really pretty. But yeah, so what we'll do today is, so just a little recap. And actually, why don't let's get to the command line here. Let's take a look at what we were doing yesterday. So first of all, yesterday we were focused on just getting our applications deployed. So we did start with a very basic Nginx app. It was literally just Nginx running. We had a Docker file, and through using Copilot, we were able to go from, I'm not sharing my screen. Let's share my screen.
You'll have to share your screen.
So another, I just have to say that I experienced a power outage right before right before the stream started. So I'm back on, but anyways, I do have battery power, but not everything's battery powered. So if my power goes out again, I do apologize, but Brent, we'll work together to get this through. So anyway, okay. So we deployed our front end. We had an Nginx service, very basic. We did a Copilot. We created an app. And if you remember from yesterday, or if you weren't here yesterday, an app in Copilot is essentially a way to, it's like an umbrella over all the different services that are encompassed within that application. So,
I was thinking about that yesterday, well, after the show a little bit, and I started thinking back to, my days at Spotify and stuff like that. And when you work as a service team, you're very often working on your own set of what we call applications, right? Microservices. But really, the service team you could think of as that being the app, the avatar team or the billing team or the playlist team or so on and so forth. Um, so you definitely can organize yourself around service teams, and then that team is in charge of an app that contains a set of services. So I kind of like this terminology. It takes some getting used to because I'm used to thinking of an app as being one of the services, but
Yeah.
really here it's the collection of all of the services for one service team.
Yeah. And I think realistically, it in today's world, people are developing, you have, like you said, you have a billing service or a billing app, right? I'm exposing an application that's billing, but behind the scenes, there could be hundreds or thousands of services running under that app. So yeah, that's a cool way of putting it. So yeah, so we defined our app. Now we started with the Nginx app. It was just one service, and then we moved on to our workshop applications. So we have ECSworkshop.com, EKSworkshop.com. We have 3 applications we deploy as a part of those workshops, and I'll actually just go here to show you what that looks like. And essentially, this is just deploying a front end service and then 2 back end services. And so what we did is yesterday with Copilot, I'm going to actually do it from the command line, is I was able to, so Copilot app ls, I can see here's the apps that I deployed. Now, if I want to get a little more details into those apps, app show ECS workshop, that I'm already memorizing the commands. I love it. It's so easy. I don't know. Well, a Mac just turned on in the background. Result of power outage. Sorry. I hear noises.
It
It's either
finally realized the power's back on.
right. Like, kind of surprising. Like I heard that. Like what? Anyway, so we have our app for ECS Workshop, and within that app we have our 2 services. So we deployed the front end service and we deployed the back end Node.js service. So actually, that was the one thing I wanted to get that load balancer URL. I think if I do service show, let's see. So I just did a service show, and pretty awesome. So it showed for the front end, and and you know why it showed for the front end, by the way, because I'm in the front end directory. So I have 2 repositories. I have a front end repository and a Node.js backend GitHub repository or Git repository. So each repository has its own manifest file. So when I run Copilot in that respective directory, it knows which application or which service to pull up the details for. So that's kind of neat. So this is what we deployed yesterday. And what you can see is I thought we deployed 3. It looks like we only have 2 instances of the front end and then 1 instance of the back end service. And let's go back here. No, we should have 3. So it looks like one of our services, something's going on. I don't know.
Well, go back and look again. I think what might be happening is the default for Copilot is to come up in 2 availability zones.
Oh,
So
that's right.
you might see one of the availability zones has 2 services.
You are right. Good call, Brent. So our workshop spans across 3 AZs, but the default is 2 availability zones for this workshops. And you're right. So it's availability zone A. We have 2 instances. Good call. Good call. So let me just scroll up a little bit here so we can see more. So you can see here when I just do a Copilot service show, it gives me the details about my service, any type of environment variables I have. So if you remember from yesterday too, our front end talks to our back end services through service discovery, which is through AWS Cloud Map. And so we have environment variables that we need to set in our service, which we did in our manifest file. And you can see here, this is how it talks to them. So another just cool thing about Copilot is with that opinionated nature, it created the service discovery namespace for us. It gave us basically, it goes your service name, your application name. So service name.application name.local. And then that's how we were able to then populate these environment variables. So super cool, really easy to do. I didn't have to do anything. Copilot did it for me as far as setting up service discovery. So one thing I want to say is these services, the way they work. So these are running as Fargate services in ECS, okay, which is the default we use with Copilot that we used when we deployed. And as a part of that, when the service comes up, what we do is we have to make some AWS CLI command calls to get some information about the subnet we're in. And that's how we're able to populate the availability zone. So to do that, now I did this yesterday after the after our stream, because I was just curious. And what found out was if I need to create resources, and I found out, Brent actually sent me the link, so I got to give him some credit here. But what we found out was if I need to create more resources outside of just my ECS services and my overarching application, I can do that with Copilot as well, because there's a helper that will actually deploy CloudFormation templates on my behalf. So to do that, and Brent, am I coming out okay? Is everything good? Just want to check.
Yeah, I think everything's good. I don't see any comments in the chat about audio or video or anything being a problem.
Cool.
So let me clarify a little bit, at least what I understand you were talking about. Copilot, at first glance, in yesterday's show, was an opinionated tool that would bring things up a certain way. What we discovered is we need to customize that just a little bit. And so we started looking into how customizable is this? And we discovered it's actually super customizable. We can add in our own custom CloudFormation. So that's what Adam's about to walk through. And the reasoning, I think, will become more clear as he walks through it.
Yeah, thanks for that. And so just from a documentation perspective, if you go to the wiki, you go to additional AWS resources, you can read more on this. But essentially, in the Copilot CLI world, they're referred to as add-ons. So in our use case, I needed an IAM role because my Fargate tasks make CLI calls, make API calls to the EC2 service to get the subnet information. To do that, we need an IAM role attached to that service so it has the proper permissions to make those calls. So in your Copilot directory, so when you initialize Copilot, when you first set it up, it creates a Copilot directory with the manifest file in your repository. And if you want to add more resources like we were talking about, you create an add-ons directory. So I did that yesterday. And then you simply create your CloudFormation YAML. And what it'll do is, oh boy, there we go. It will actually read that on the next deployment, and it's going to deploy that CloudFormation for you. So in the case here, I needed it, as I mentioned, I needed an IAM policy. And I think I said an IAM role. But what I really needed was a policy that allowed me to run this specific API call. So it's pretty generic. I just need to run a couple describe calls against the EC2 API. And all I have to do is create the resources. This is CloudFormation. This is pure CloudFormation here. And then I output that CloudFormation. And what will happen is Copilot is going to, with the logic behind the scenes, catch that I've created this policy, and it's going to dynamically attach that to my task role for my service. So Go
So
ahead.
the application that you're deploying, this is something that is application specific. Like
Yes.
back yesterday at the very beginning, we did, we deployed Nginx, and that was basically a hello world application. It did not need EC2 describe permissions. The app itself didn't. There I go again. The app, the service didn't. Um, but the service that we're deploying here, the front end and the two back end microservices, those services benefit from having EC2 describe. They need that to introspect and figure out information about about EC2. They need to be able to describe some of the details. So this isn't specific to Copilot. This is specific to our application. However, we're using Copilot to solve this problem, right? We're showing you that instead of you having to, more or less exit out of Copilot and start managing thousands of lines of CloudFormation on your own and go back to hand building all this stuff, all you have to do is have, one stanza of CloudFormation that is your custom CloudFormation that you can focus on. Again, it's all about eliminating the boilerplate and bringing in the parts that matter most to you and letting you still own those parts will take care of the boilerplate. So that's what's happening here is we're just injecting some custom cloud formation to be able to add on those permissions that we need that are custom for our service.
Exactly. Well said. And this is not limited to IAM, right? Like
Yeah,
I could.
you could be bringing up I need a DynamoDB table that my application is going to write stuff into, or I need to. I can't think of another
An
example.
S3 bucket, right? Like,
There you go. Yeah.
yeah. And ultimately, it's just very specific to my service, right? So that's what's cool is I don't have to focus on 10 other services here and figure out how to sync all those things together. No, I just create this for my service and I'm good.
Yep.
So, okay. And then so all you have to do is output the role ARN, and Copilot is going to recognize that you created a policy ARN, not a role ARN. I keep saying role. It's going to recognize that policy and attach it to your Fargate task role. So if you're not familiar, I'll explain it really quick. But with ECS and also EKS as well, it's just a little different, the mechanisms between the two. But with ECS, you have native integration with IAM. So with an ECS service, I can attach an IAM role to it. So that means that ECS service only has the permissions to talk to AWS resources that were defined within that IAM role. So theoretically, if I had two tasks running on let's say on the same EC2 instance, not Fargate, but just EC2, okay? Two ECS tasks running. One had an IAM role attached that said you could access an S3 bucket A, but the second one didn't have any access, any IAM roles attached to it. The permission boundary is isolated only to the task that has that IAM role attached to it to talk to S3 bucket A. Does that make sense, Brent?
I think it does. Yeah. I think, if you look at how did you solve this, in the past, you used to have to attach the roles and the permissions to the EC2 instance, and then any container that was running on that instance, would benefit from having that level of access. So what we can do with attaching roles directly to the task in the case of ECS is limit the permission boundary to the task rather than to every task running on a single instance. So that's what we're doing here. I think it's definitely a better security practice, and in a way it kind of further gets us down the road of treating our container as the new compute primitive. Our task is the new compute primitive.
And Yeah, so that's basically it. And so I thought it'd be nice to talk about that just for a few minutes, just to explain that while Copilot is very specific to ECS and getting your application deployed onto ECS, if you need other resources, it's doable within the Copilot CLI ecosystem, so to speak. So pretty cool. And so I just wanted to, one other thing, I ran a Copilot service status. You can see my 3 services are running. When was it last updated? Gives you some really good information as well. So that's that. Let's talk about something that we haven't done yet with Copilot. I have not even, I'm going to be completely honest, I don't even think I've even looked at the docs for this yet. So one thing I know with Copilot is you can actually create a CICD pipeline using Copilot. So there's a command I can run that will actually do all the heavy lifting of creating the CICD pipeline for my container. And it's all through the command line. So I'm going to actually test that live, and we're going to go through it. Now, I do believe there's going to be some credentials that I'm going to have to populate. So when that happens, I'm going to ask Brent to just nicely pan away when that comes up.
Yeah. Yeah, good call.
But until then, let's just get through it. So, okay, so this is the documentation. I went to the pipeline section, and just kind of a nice explanation as to why and what we're doing. So let's actually just look at the pipeline structure. So a few commands. Okay, so let's just see what we're going to do here. But we need a GitHub source. So my code is in GitHub. I have that forked, so I'll be sure to get that going. It'll create a build stage. So every time I push my code to GitHub, the branch is master by default. It's going to trigger a build, which will build the container image. So it says apps container image. So I wonder if this is service specific or app specific. Do you know, Brent?
That's a good question. I wonder if that's maybe they're getting their terminology jumbled as well, because it can't be because we have 3 different repos, so there would have to be we need to build 3 different pipelines.
Yeah, that's what I would guess too. So
that's my expectation. Is this is probably, hey, this is a good opportunity for someone to submit a PR and correct that little wording problem there.
Yeah, under the pipelines wiki. Yep.
So
we're going to assume that, and I think it's fair to assume that too, that it's going to actually be my service container image that's going to get built and then deployed to each environment. So after the build stage, it's then going to deploy to any and all of your environments. So, this is cool with optional post-deployment tests and manual approvals. So I know just with Code Pipeline, you have there's additional functionality that you can enable, like manual approvals, meaning let's say before it goes to production, you need someone from the QA team or someone to approve this deployment to go to production, whatever that is. You can do that, and you can control that with IAM, by the way, which is really cool with Code Pipeline. So okay, let's get started. So okay, so we're going to do a Copilot pipeline init. Now I'm going to move this guy over here. So Copilot pipeline init. Oops, can I not spell? There we go. Okay, we're going to run an init. Would you like to add an environment to your pipeline? Yeah. And I want it to be test.
Yeah.
Again, this is really cool. I really like this back and forth here. It's just, if I had 4 environments, it would give me all the environments here. So that's really neat. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, so here's what I need to do. First is actually, I'm going to cancel that. Get remote. Yeah. Stream. And let's see here. Here we go. Here we go. Song's awesome. No one can tell me otherwise. Okay. And I don't have my SSH key here either. So I'm going to have to add that in a moment. I'll tell you when. Okay. So I added that. And you know what? So I need to do that really quick. But Brent, if we could just go back to us for just a moment. You do it. I can't see. Did I lose you?
No, you can't
Oh,
see.
okay. Oh, okay. No.
Oh, sorry, I did it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm not working on my giant, 34-inch monitor right now.
That's right. Power outage.
Yeah, power outage. This is Southern California. We like to just shut the power off. Okay, so yeah, just give me a moment. So what I'm doing right now is I'm creating an SSH key. I'm just, because this is a brand new Cloud9 instance I have set up. So sorry I didn't do this before, but this is okay because, hey, we got to do these things, right? You'd have to do it one way or the other. So I'm just adding this new SSH key behind the scenes, and it'll be ready momentarily. Okay. There's that. So just a moment. Oh, okay. Almost there. I promise.
Okay.
And as this is happening,
it's like you're computing the SSH key, manually in your head or something.
I'm not. Rest assured, I'm not. It's almost like I forgot how to use SSH keys altogether.
I'm almost there.
But I didn't. Don't worry. Okay, there we go. Added that. Key test. Okay. There we go. Good to know the difference between a public key and a private key. Okay. All right, so we're back now. So
ready?
we can, yeah, we're good.
Okay.
All right. So let's go to back to the front end. And I have my SSH key. Let me just get remote-v. Okay. So I modified the Docker file. I wonder if I need the Copilot directory in there. I'm sure I do.
I think you do, and I think it'll actually tell you that.
Okay.
That question comes up so often when you start to layer in tooling to your repos is, do I ignore this or do I add it to the repo? I think in the case of Copilot, you can pretty much count on adding it to the repo.
And yes, I just did a force push on my branch, right? Yeah, my branch. Okay. Or my repo. I got a little scared there. I'm not going to lie that I just force pushed yours.
Me too.
Okay, but we're good. We're safe. The force push, really a healthy move. Okay, so let's see. So I push my changes. Okay, so we have access to Git. We're good. Let's go back and let's run Copilot Pipeline init like it asked me before. So I do want to add an environment. I want that environment to be test. And we're going to do my...
It's awesome that it picked up, both of your remotes.
Yep. Okay, so now it does want my GitHub personal access token.
Okay.
So you're going to have to go away again.
We're clear.
Okay. It's interesting. It wants a question mark for help. That's kind of cool. But I'm not going to do that. Let me create my token. And again, we're doing this live, everybody. So I appreciate your patience and excitement during this time. How do I add a token? Let's see.
It's under your avatar settings, developer settings.
Yeah, I've done this before, by the way, and I just don't remember where. Oh, am I gonna have to Google this?
Let me go to GitHub.
Yeah, I'm gonna. So GPT, no.
It's over on the upper right corner.
Personal,
Settings.
I got it. Bottom
It,
left, developer settings.
yeah,
Did you even say that? I feel like you may have.
I feel like I did.
Yeah. Okay, so let's give it, this is for the repo. Yep. Okay,
Sathya said it too in chat, by the way.
cool. Thank you. Thank you for the support, everybody. I'm a technical person, I swear. Terrible. Okay, let's see if okay, so I added my token.
Are we back?
Okay, yeah, you can come back now.
Okay. Boom.
Okay, so I added my token, and what did it do? So it created the token for my pipeline source stage. So in Code Pipeline, your source stage is obviously pointing to your repository, and you need a token to access for the pipeline to pull that the code down. It wrote a pipeline manifest and wrote the build spec for the pipeline stage. Cool. So it created a pipeline YAML file, which is where my pipeline definition will live. And then it has a build spec, which, again, if you're not familiar with our code deployment tools, our code suite. So Code Pipeline is essentially like the shell to basically diagram and workflow your steps to deployment from source to build to deploy, and of course testing all throughout
I
there.
think of it as an orchestrator.
Yeah,
Just like
absolutely.
EKS or ECS, those are orchestrators of containers. This is an orchestrator of builds.
Exactly. And so, but when you want to run a build, you need to run that build logic, your build code somewhere. And that's where code build comes into play. So what Code Pipeline does is it will call code build. A code build instance will come up. It's a container, and that container is going to run whatever your automation is that you've written. Let's look at that actually. And that's defined in what's called a build spec. So that's the build spec.yaml. And so that's the build spec here. I just catted it.
Wow.
But it's pretty.
That's pretty populated already.
Yeah. So
It
you can
looks like
see
they're downloading Copilot and
yeah. But so this is cool. Look here. So they gave me the option because, of course, I think it's hard to just say we know exactly what tests you're going to run, what test suite you're using, right? There's so many different options. But they have a nice little comment here that says, here's where you do your testing, right?
Yeah.
So it says run your tests, and then, of course, you can add your tests. So, if I want to run PyTest or whatever my framework is, boom, just write my test logic there. So this is good. And then it's just doing a lot of build. So we can look here, and it's using the Copilot CLI. It's to grab all this data and then essentially grabbing the tag, and the tag comes from the code build ID. So did you notice yesterday, Brent, that when I was running Copilot service deploy, it was building and tagging my image with the git SHA, the git hash. Did you catch that?
And I've spent so much time like figuring out for each build environment that I'm in, figuring out how do I get that SHA, what info do I have inside the build environment to help me do that, and for Copilot to just solve that problem for me is pretty nice.
Yeah, it's super nice. And I'm gonna tee up a softball question to you, Brent. Why don't we just tag our images latest?
Oh my gosh. Oh, my blood pressure just went up 10 points, I think. Please don't tag your. Well, I'm fine if you tag your image latest. Don't deploy
That's right.
using the latest tag.
What I
So
meant to say.
the thing is, a lot of orchestrators look to figure out, is this different than the previous deployment? And when you change the tag, then it's obviously different. But when you deploy latest, and then you move the latest tag and you tell it to deploy again, the deployment doesn't look different because the tag is still latest. You just moved it to a new image. So for messing around, if you want to do latest, fine. But when it comes to building actual deploy files that you're going to pass on to an orchestrator, always use something other than latest, something that's guaranteed to change. That could be semantic version based tags if you want. But I love to do git shaws because ultimately, when I'm troubleshooting something and I'm going back to the code, I'm going, the tags can move. Um, Everything else that you might choose is temporary and can move, but git shaws don't move. So it's really easy for me to know with certainty that the code I'm looking at is the code that was running based on those SHAs matching up.
Yeah, I agree. And that's, for me, it's just to be able to, it's Brent, I think you call it the 2 a.m. rule, right?
Yep.
If I wake up at 2 a.m. for a page, something goes wrong in my environment, and it's for one of my containers, the first thing I may want to check is, was any code committed recently? And I can do that by comparing the hash of the tag that's deployed in our production environment to Git, and I can see exactly if a change has been made and what the exact change was. So now the next steps so Copilot has told me to commit my changes. So I'm going to commit the pipeline YAML and the build spec YAML. And actually, let's look at the pipeline YAML too. We didn't look at that. So this is our pipeline YAML definition, which this is really, wow. This abstracts a lot out, I have to tell you. If you're creating, code pipeline and building this on your own, to do it in CloudFormation or CDK, there's a few things that you have to build and consider, and you have to write quite a bit. This abstracts all that away from you and just says, has a few simple lines. Here's your source properties and then stages, and that's it. That's really clean. So, okay, so let's git status. Let's git commit, adding pipeline. And now I'm going to push to upstream. Also, what I'm going to do, git, what is it? Remove origin. No. Anyway, that's fine. Okay, so I've pushed it. Now, the next step would be, I didn't want to add any additional stages. I didn't want to change the build spec. So, and it's just telling me for my unit tests, I would put them in the build spec. So let's run Copilot pipeline update. And so what this should do now is it's going to create a pipeline. My guess is I'm going to see that change reflected in CloudFormation. And we'll confirm that in just a moment here. Yep. So there's my pipeline.
Cool.
So we can see the events it's creating. It creates roles. So when you create a pipeline, you have to first, create your code pipeline in CloudFormation. Then there's creating all the roles, the IAM roles, to allow permissions for all the resources to be able to talk to each other. Then there's the code build project, which, remember, code build's what's actually going to build my code. Mm-hmm. And then the deploy portion. So what I wonder is, are we going to use code build to do the deployment, or are we using code deploy with Copilot?
Interesting. Yeah, let's wait and see. By the way, while we're waiting, there is a question in chat. It's a little bit, let me combine a couple of different questions. BT Steve 1 says, what is this Copilot thing? Maybe he joined a little bit late. And then Sathya says, Copilot looks cool. When did it get released? I haven't heard a lot about it. So let's recap what Copilot is.
Yeah, cool. So I pulled up the front page, which, by the way, Brent, if you want to flash it on here.
Yes.
So it is a GitHub project. This is open source, but essentially it's a CLI tool that allows you to create and basically create resources. So deploy services in a very simplified way. So the idea is you have your Docker file, and you have your code. You have a repository, and now from here you're ready to deploy this container. You want to take this, build an image, and you want to get this image deployed to an orchestrator and running somewhere. Copilot abstracts a lot of the boilerplate, and we've said this yesterday when we were talking about it. Is there's a lot that has to be built prior to deploying your container and to actually getting your container image and your code to an environment where it can run and actually do what you expect it to do. So Copilot builds the underlying environments for you and allows you to just focus on developing your application and just keeping it really simple. And what I have here is just the front page of the GitHub README. I definitely recommend just reading through it, but I don't want to read this to you. But you can see here, it's to get up and running. We did it yesterday. We just had a Docker file, and we had an environment running with an ECS cluster, the network VPC, everything we needed for our container to run. It was less than 10 minutes. That is factual. We experienced that firsthand.
With zero experience going into it. I think that's the other really cool thing. And what I think of is I had a former coworker who went on a rant one day and was just like, I have my Docker container. I just want to see it run. Just run it somewhere on the cloud. Just make it run. And, I kept trying to explain, well, we need to build this ECS cluster, and, we need to have a VPC, and we need to, have a load balancer and security groups and routing and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, why do I need all that? I just want to see my container run. Just make it run. And that's what Copilot is really for. It's to help, get going quickly with all the best practices or all the good practices. And, after that, you want to layer on some additional stuff. You can definitely continue to tweak it. So we have some more discussion in the chat. Uh, BT Steve says, what about if you're running EKS?
Well, so Copilot is an ECS tool, right? So this is a CLI tool for ECS. If you're running EKS, I mean, there's options.
Yes.
And it really depends.
We'll start looking at stuff like that maybe on another show, but this is definitely ECS specific.
Yeah.
And then Cholmang says, it even does CICD for you. Super cool, which is what we're working on right now. And then pipelines.
Yep.
It's Gravatar Florida. It's a hard color to read. Copilot was focused on AWS resources, or can it work with other? I think he means other solution. It's an AWS tool. It's built by a team at AWS, and it is focused on the ECS service specifically, and getting stuff deployed there super easily, mainly so that you can be as hands-off from the infrastructure as possible and just focus on your application.
Yeah.
So
exactly. And so let's go to ECS. So okay, so while we were talking there, first of all, it built the pipeline really quickly. And after the pipeline was built, it just triggered. So it started. And you can see that was that source stage. So it pulled the code from my repository, which again, I fed my access key to the command line, which is how it was able to set all this up. And from there, we ran through the build stage, which built the Docker image and then pushed it to ECR, which, I mean, there's a lot of stuff to unpack here, but just here you go. So here was our Docker build, and then it logged into ECR and then pushed that image with that latest tag. So the next step
latest
with the the latest thank you git tag, which was
okay.
Thank you.
Just making
sure. I appreciate that, Brent. You keep me on my toes.
After my rant, I wanted to make sure that we were being clear.
Totally fair. Yeah, that's a good point. So I had asked you, or I had mentioned, I wonder what deployment mechanism we're going to use. So it's the CloudFormation deployment. So Code Pipeline has a lot of native integrations with AWS, and CloudFormation is one of those. So you can have a deploy stage that is directly integrated with CloudFormation. So that's what's happening. So it's the CloudFormation deploy stage. And what it's doing is it's deploying our latest image. So essentially, when you think of ECS, there's a service. A service has a task definition, which defines how many my containers, my container or containers that I want to run in this task, as well as all the specifics around my container and my container image. So it updated the task definition, and now it is updating the service. And then ultimately, that service is going to get redeployed, and we should see the service count probably double. Yep, there it is. So you can see here's our front end service. So we have 6 running tasks, and this is set in ECS. You have different deployment strategies, and specifically, this is a front end service. So I can't afford to have my front end service down because this is customer facing. I need this to be up at all times. So as a strategy here, we have the desired minimum count of tasks to be 100%, but the running total, but for deployments, we can have up to 200%. So the idea is when a deployment happens, we double the count, health check the newly deployed service, the newly deployed tasks, and assuming they're healthy and good, the old tasks will get killed off by the orchestrator and your deployment's done.
Yeah, this is the most basic blue-green type of deployment. So it's a more true blue-green deployment would probably keep those old tasks around so that you could cut back to them if you needed to. But assuming the new ones go healthy, then the old ones end up getting killed. But other than that, we're definitely doing the same kind of moves where we double the count, wait for them to go healthy, shift traffic, then remove the old ones. So still in the style of blue-green.
Yeah. And you'll see here with our front end, if you remember earlier when I pointed this out, we had 2 running in availability zone A for the front end. Now we have, it looks like 2 running in availability zone B and 1 in availability zone A. So that's cool. So my goodness, that was really cool. And I want everybody to know.
Fastest I've ever seen anyone build a pipeline. I mean,
frankly, I didn't read up on this before. It was intentional that I came into this with completely not understanding or knowing how to do it with Copilot. And man, was that nice.
So with just, that one command, now let's push a change to GitHub, to your GitHub repo. And I mean, we're basically done. We at this point have CI and CD knocked out, and it was just with that one command.
Yep. You like my spelling? Good. So git add, I named it Adam. Git commit. And this is okay. So this is my favorite part of Code Pipeline is I always try to I want to beat Code Pipeline, meaning I want to see Code Pipeline before the change, before they catch the change. Like I want to be there before. I usually can't because Code Pipeline catches it so quickly. So I just made a change to the repo again. I just committed a random file.
You're pushing to origin?
It's okay. I don't have the permission.
Ah, yes, good. Watch out.
Oh, you got so nervous. I'm sorry. I think I could do git remote. Is it remove origin?
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So, okay. So refresh. And well, it looks like I beat it this time, but I swear normally I don't.
And this could be, are they polling or are they using a webhook kind of situation? And
Yeah,
so
that's a good
we
point.
could dig into that if we wanted to, or dig into the code. And you know what? Like we said, this is still beta, but they definitely, will be continuing to enhance this.
Yeah, and
So we
it
had
did pick up my change.
sweet. So we do have another question. Doc Cones, does it only work with GitHub specifically, or does it support other Git options? It's a good question. I actually don't know the answer.
Yeah, I
I'm
don't know the answer
curious.
either. Um, but let's look. Let's see, pipelines. Right, because I mean,
It
at
would
least
be limited to whatever code pipeline would support. We can assume that.
right, which is I think a Bitbucket, uh, and then code commit, of course, in GitHub.
Yeah, right.
So there is provider. So I mean, I can specify
That,
the provider.
yeah, that does imply. What if you searched for provider just in the code? See if there's um,
Let's do that.
any other references.
I don't know. So let's see. So let's again. And my spelling provider. So it looks like right now, no. So I see we GitHub provider, but like,
Mhm.
is there a code? I don't see code commit here.
Yeah.
My
So it looks
guess
like they
is
may be starting out with GitHub, but they're like plumbed already to support additional providers. So again, this is probably just a MVP, the goal, and then after that they'll be adding additional stuff.
and this is the beauty of AWS and AWS services and things we build is it's what drives roadmap at AWS is customers. So if there's something you want, submit an issue. The more people that plus want it, that just gets it more visibility, and then ultimately that's how things end up on the roadmap and get added into these things. So just keep
Yeah.
that in mind.
And NDP just threw into the chat, what if I want to see some feature branches deployed to an on-demand staging environment? And again, same type of answer. I think we're kind of MVP level with this right now, but we'll definitely keep watching it and we'll look for that kind of enhancement. I will say though that if you wanted that to be an automatic thing, like every pull request or every feature branch, I would wait for that feature to be added to Copilot. But if there was just a one-off, like you've been working, you have a bunch of stuff in a branch and you've been working and you want to see that, you can definitely use Copilot to build another environment. And once you have that, you can push the branch that you're on into that environment, deploy it, and see it all work. So if you're just talking about that kind of functionality, you have it. If you're talking about automated branch functionality, then I think that'll probably be a follow-on.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's exactly what my response was going to be, Brent. The
Sorry.
latter half of that one. No, it's perfect. You saved me the words. But yeah, just this is the thing about AWS, and when you're working in AWS, you need something and you want to test it, just build it. And of course, for development environments, you're not going to want to deploy the largest instance type, and use the most resources. You want something slim. Copilot makes it really easy to deploy a test environment specific to your branch. So you're testing on a branch. You don't even need a pipeline. Just Copilot service, deploy. I think Copilot init. You create a new environment, call it feature 123, and then deploy to feature 123. And there you go. You have a production-like environment. Remember, it's very similar. You can override values. Like
Hmm.
one thing in that manifest to point out here, ECS demo front end manifest is, for example, maybe on a production service, I need a full CPU, right? But for dev, I probably don't. So I can use a smaller Fargate instance size. And also I don't need 3 for dev. I just need one task running. So these are the things you can do to make it, more test like. And by the way, here are the overrides for environments, which like, that's awesome. As I was talking about it, it's like it answered the question for me.
Yeah, because like your uh, test environment might have one database URL, but your production environment would have a different database URL. So passing those in as environment variables, but making them different per environment is super common. So I'm glad to see that they have that ready to go.
So that's pretty much it. I mean, I I expected that to not be as easy as it was. Not to say that the tool wasn't designed for that. I expected that, but I just expected something that go wrong on my end, and it didn't. It was just really easy.
Yeah.
It
I
walked me
mean
through
that,
it.
and
Yeah, go ahead.
we didn't have to use a bunch of cloud formation. We didn't have to, uh, go and like modify our code. We if you go back and watch yesterday's videos, we took an application that that we've routinely used for demonstrations for years now, and we put it into this code pipeline workflow, and it just worked.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
And I wish I had the hash functionality working, because right now we have 6 front end services because remember I pushed that
Yeah.
change a couple minutes ago. And so we have our 6 services running, and eventually it's going to scale down back down to 3. So
Yeah, and that's something that the hash functionality is like that's a me problem with the way that I have the app picking that information up. So we could definitely work on improving that.
yeah, one day.
Yeah.
But that's it.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter, Brent Contained and Real Adam J. Keller. We'll be tweeting rarely. We don't want to overwhelm you or anything, but we want to, drop some container knowledge once in a while. We're going to be doing this show for the foreseeable future, Monday through Thursday, the same time slot every single day. So we won't be here tomorrow, but definitely come back and join us uh, Monday, right? So we hope to see you then.
Cool. Thanks so much.